Well, a man who's been privy to the discussions at the GST Council, the Finance Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, joins us now. Mr. Drabu, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. The Finance Minister there saying that a single tax rate is not going to be feasible, it's not going to be possible. But let's talk about the possibility of a convergence of 18 and 28%, which is what it seems like we are headed to. Just about 50 items now left in the 28% bracket. Already the likes of the cement and the paint business pleading to the government, asking for relief. Do you believe that once we get a clear picture on the revenue collection, maybe we could see more items move out of the 28% slab?
Right from the beginning, I think there was this basic understanding that we are going into uncharted waters, as it were, by moving into a new tax regime, and revenue was a big concern. It was always believed that we'll have a three-rate structure. There's no question of one rate, because you will have one basic GST rate, you will have a merit good rate and a demerit good rate. So we are looking at three, and the only thing is, will you collapse 12 and 18, and how soon will you collapse that? Now, that will be driven by how the system performs. 28%, yes, it's always that we would look at trimming this list down. In fact, 3-4 meetings ago in GST Council, the sense of the House was that we need to trim 28%. Now, for a variety of reasons, one was the anomalies that do come up because you had changed 11,000 commodities had come in with some with 19 rates, so there would be obvious anomalies and stuff. But what really triggered of the thing is something that's not been adequately highlighted, is the fact that in the third month itself, the compensation to states is actually, if you look at a compensation account, so to say, then as we speak, we are in a surplus, not a deficit. So the states' compensation needs have come down from 28% to 7%, and in the actual numbers to about 7,500 crores. Whereas the collection from cess, which is supposed to fund the state's revenues, the state's losses, is about 8,000 crores. So with this kind of revenue buoyancy and the reduced need for compensation, I think the council got emboldened to go ahead with the rate cuts of the kind that happened, because even the fiscal committee has recommended lesser amount of cuts, but the GST Council itself took a view of increasing that.
Okay, so you're in agreement with the Finance Minister that a single rate structure is not practical, it's not possible. It was always meant to be three, which is probably where we're headed. But I want to pick up on the other comment that the FM has made, Mr. Drabu, when he says that further rationalization is possible. In fact, further rationalization should be expected. What should we understand that to mean? You just spoke about the need to collapse, or possibly the future could be collapsing 12 and 18. So can we expect more rationalization in the 18% slab now, sir?
Yes, I mean, you would look at 12, 18 and 28. There's no, I mean, that obviously will happen, because now we'll also look at it, this has been done in terms of the HSN code, the chapters. I think we have done it at the 6-digit level. Perhaps you look at a 4-digit classification where rates will be fixed. So you will see that the number of commodities that are anonymously played in different categories would also come down, which will pave the way for a kind of, let's say, a 14.5-15% basic GST rate, whereas the merit good rate would remain at 5. And you will see some further movement. Of course, only demerit goods will stay at 28. You will see a lot of movement between 18 and 12 in the next 3 to 6 months before we start aspiring towards a single rate between 12 and 18, which will somewhere be around 14.5, 15, which would in some way be at that point, given the buoyancy and the elasticity of revenue of these receipts, could be the revenue neutral rate, which is what the original thought was.
Yes, that was the original thought, even of the Chief Economic Advisor's Committee. But Mr. Drabu, you know, there are concerns now on what the rate revisions will mean as far as the fiscal picture is concerned, and whether we'll be able to meet the fiscal deficit target of 3.2%, because the Finance Minister has also made it clear that the revenue trend is not absolutely certain at this point in time. For the benefit of our viewers who are watching, what does the macro story look like on the back of the big changes that have been announced? And is the fiscal deficit target of 3.2 in danger, you feel?
See, my biggest concern right through has been that the centre has taken the responsibility for compensating the losses arising out of a transfer to GST. Now, if you read the compensation scheme, carefully, it actually is an insurance against any low revenues of a state government. Now, that, to my mind, was the biggest threat to the fisc. The first 3 months have allayed some of those fears, that the compensation requirements, and in fact, when we started, we were looking at, can you extend this beyond 5 years? What happens if states start losing after 5 years also? Because the cess was done only after the compensation scheme talks about 5 years. So, but the first 3 months, specifically in terms of revenue losses of the state, the picture has been fairly encouraging. Yeah. So I don't see that as a threat right now. Surely there is an issue that please also understand that if that is so, then what we had factored in into the fiscal deficit has considerably come down in terms of pressure on centre resources. Second part is that you need not look at only the centre's fiscal deficit, because out of every 1 rupee that is lost by the central revenues, a part of it flows to the states in form of devolution. So centre will not come in. Suppose you have now, assuming notional losses today estimated, based on today's tax policies, based on today's GDP thing is 10,000, then 4,200 is the loss that we transfer to the states through devolution. So it's not only about the centre finances, it's about the total fiscal picture.
Centre, sure.
It's only about the centre, it's about the total fiscal picture. But then you come back into it and say the state's losses are being funded by centre. Those are not showing such a bad pattern. In fact, interestingly, smaller states and consuming states are still showing a loss because of the glitches that have happened in the return filing and all that. The picture will get much better in the next 3 to 4 months, and you should be able to take a call. I think most of the analysts that you spoke to, have been quoted today, seem to be jumping the gun on the fisc right now.
Okay, seem to be jumping the gun on the fisc, and you're saying that on the back of the evidence that we have 4 months into the GST, the fears may be a bit exaggerated today. We'll, of course, have to see how this unfolds, but today you're saying the fiscal fears may be a tad exaggerated. Haseeb Drabu, always a pleasure, sir. Thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18.